TV18.
Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty end in the green even as global markets see a sell-off. The rupee rising to a one-month high against the US dollar. Maruti Suzuki reports a 20% revenue growth in Q4 even as it misses street expectations, announces capacity addition of 1 million units through internal accruals. This will almost double its capacity in Gurugram and Manesar plants. Global tech giants surpass earnings expectations amidst layoffs. Microsoft's net income rises 9% driven by artificial intelligence. Alphabet delivers on top line and bottom line after missing estimates for the last 4 quarters. Google Cloud's business turns profitable for the first time. Demand for rural jobs for a guarantee 100 days under the government's flagship scheme saw a sharp drop in FY23. Government officials tell CNBC-TV18 a drop in rural job demand under MNRRGS points to steady revival in economic growth. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. 5 months on, and the Competition Commission of India still has no permanent chairperson. Sources say the government is actively considering over 30 candidates for the post of chairperson, and the decision may be taken very soon. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. A fresh twist in the race for Reliance Capital. Sources say Hinduja Group is the sole participant in the second round of auction and will be declared as the highest bidder. Torrent and Oaktree did not participate. The Gujarat government unveils a mandatory dividend distribution policy for all state public sector units, directs them to declare minimum dividend of 30% of net profit or 5% of net worth, whichever is higher. All 7 listed PSUs rally in trade.
It indicates that, again, vast holes in the risk management practices by both regulators there and the banks themselves.
Veteran banker KV Kamath says that a banking crisis similar to the one triggered by the Silicon Valley bank collapse in the US will not take place in India. Also reacts to the United Nations report indicating India may overtake China as the most populous nation by June, says it will be a positive milestone. 48 drugs failed quality test conducted by India's drug regulator in March. The list includes commonly used medicines like calcium, vitamins, anti-diabetic drugs and antibiotics. Nearly 1,500 samples were tested. The failure rate was at 3%. 5-time Chief Minister of Punjab and Shiromani Akali Dal patriarch Parkash Singh Badal passes away at the age of 95. Prime Minister Modi and leaders across political spectrum pay their respects in Chandigarh. The Union government declares 2 days of national mourning. The Punjab government declares a public holiday on Thursday in his honour. The government opens its arguments on the 5th day of the same-sex marriage hearings, requests the Supreme Court to leave the matter to Parliament and stop the hearing. Solicitor General says the government is not making a value judgment, but the issue must be left to lawmakers. Well, straight to the day's trading action. The Wall Street did end the day in the green, even as global markets saw a sell-off. The Nifty holding on to the 17,800 mark after a range-bound session. Financials relatively outperformed, with HDFC Bank being the biggest contributor. Mid-caps rising in line with the benchmarks. Prashant is standing by to take us through the market action of the day. Closing in the green, Prashant, today.
A late surge leading to the market doing very well. The Nifty finally ending with a 0.25%, little over that in terms of gains. Banks doing even better. Banks have been the stronger of the 2 indices. And this after a day spent doing not very much. Price action was slow. The range was very tight as well. But the results by close at 3:30 are on your screen, both for the Nifty and the banks as well. Again, on the Nifty, there was not anything which was exceptionally up or down. Power Grid, Nestle, Tata Consumer, 3 names which were the top gainers. Gujarat public sector companies did very well. GNFC, GSFC, Gujarat Alkali, GMDC and so on and so forth. The government, of course, has announced new policy in terms of dividend distribution, and the street was very excited. Big moves on volumes here. Market breadth improved into close, and that was a good thing. Broader market gainers include names like KPIT Tech, Mahindra, CIE. Some, of course, like KPIT were result reactions. Others were not. Lemon Tree, KEI, Saxoft, Astra Micro are some of the names. Saxoft, by the way, is up 65% in this month. Losses coming through, and this is losses from yesterday. IPCA and Crompton continued to lose ground. MCX, there was a resignation, stock lost. Aavas Financiers rallies. Action Construction, KEC were some of the other names which lost. Now, the market in the Nifty is very close to 17,863, which was the high from last Monday, the swing high, the 17th high. And we're about 40 points away from that. Above that, a solid close above that gives us visibility that more upsides perhaps could open up. What we want from US, of course, is continuity. It's an earnings-heavy week like what we saw with Microsoft and Google reporting, and Mo will report later today. And, good results and continuity and stability in the US market perhaps provides us with that impulse when we come back tomorrow.
Prashant, many thanks for joining us. In the currency market, the rupee rising to a one-month high against the US dollar. The rupee ending the day at 81.75 against the greenback. The global market sell-off and geopolitical concerns weighing on the dollar. Crude oil prices inching higher after declining for the last few days, and the recovery is on the back of a decline in US inventories and expectations of strong demand due to the Golden Week holiday in China between the 29th of April to the 5th of May. Meanwhile, Brent crude continues to hover around the $81 mark. Well, earnings season continues to roll on, and Maruti Suzuki has reported a 20% rise in revenue and a 45% rise in profit. But even this was slightly below street estimates. Maruti has announced fresh capacity addition of 1 million units, and this will nearly double its capacity at Gurugram and its Manesar plant. Sonia standing by to decode Maruti's numbers for us. Sonia.
Well, thanks a lot for that. So Maruti's numbers were strong, but they were slightly below what the street was estimating. The positives in the numbers is that the margins have improved for the third consecutive quarter, and the margins for the company have gone up 130 basis points year on year at 10.4%. Also, the company has decided to raise its capacity by up to 1 million units, financed by internal accruals, and this is in order to meet additional demand that is coming through, including demand from the export markets. Overall, if you look at the numbers, not too bad. A revenue growth of almost 20% is what the company has clocked in at 32,048 crores. The EBITDA has gone up 38%, while the margins have improved to 10.4% versus 9.1%. The profits are up about 42.6%, coming in at 2,623 odd crores. If you look at the trend over the past many months, you'll notice that the margins are now at the highest level that we've seen in the last many quarters. That's purely because A, the supply side constraints have eased, B, the company has taken price hikes, commodity costs have gone down as well, and the product mix has improved, aiding the operational performance for Maruti.
Sonia, many thanks for joining us. And speaking of earnings, global tech giants surpassing earnings expectations amidst layoffs. Microsoft's net income has risen 9%, and this was largely driven by artificial intelligence. Alphabet has delivered on top line and bottom line after missing estimates for the last 4 quarters. Will Caloris gets us a quick roundup of the highlights of the big tech earnings. Will?
Let's take a look at Alphabet. So they came off by 2%. In the session, they actually jumped by around about 1.6% in the after hours. So net, it wasn't necessarily recapturing all that they had indeed lost, but their revenues were strong, particularly on the services side. They beat out by around about $1.5 billion. Their operating income also strong. Their capex came off, and their free cash flow was also much higher than expectations, probably a function of the FCF coming off in terms of estimates by around about $2 billion. But AI is the story, and here's a little bit of what Sundar Pichai had to say about just that.
We have significant multi-year efforts underway to create savings, such as improving machine utilization and finding more scalable and efficient ways to train and serve machine learning models. We are making our data centers more efficient, redistributing workloads and equipment where servers aren't being fully used. This is important work as we continue to significantly invest in infrastructure to drive our many AI opportunities.
And from one infrastructure spender to another, Microsoft also reporting their numbers. They flagged that they're going to be investing more when it does come to AI, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park in terms of a lot of the comps. As you can see here, these are their revenue expectations moving forward, also primarily ahead of the street. A little bit of softness when it does come to the Azure revenue growth on a constant currency basis, and there was a slight miss in terms of that when it came to this quarter as well. But as you can see by the after hours action, people were buying into Microsoft.
Bill, many thanks for joining us. Now, British multinational bank Standard Chartered's profits beat estimates, jumping 21% in the March quarter to nearly $2 billion. This is the bank's largest single quarter profit since the start of 2014. The key driver is rising interest rates, which has boosted lending income. Shares of all 7 listed Gujarat PSUs rallying in trade today. This after the state government announced a mandatory dividend distribution policy for its public sector units. Now, the government has directed these companies to declare a minimum dividend of 30% of profit after tax or 5% of net worth, whichever is higher. There could, however, be some hiccups in the execution. Sonal is standing by to take us through what the street makes of this and what's new about this dividend policy. All of the stocks up, rallying very sharply today, Sonal. Take us through what experts are saying.
Thank you so much for that. A big move is what we have seen across these stocks today in trade. That is because the government of Gujarat, they have changed their dividend allocation policy or ways to reward the shareholders of these companies as well. In their policy note, they say that in terms of dividend, the company should be paying 30% of PAT or 5% of net worth, whichever is higher, to the shareholders. And in terms of the buyback, a PSU which has at least net worth of 2,000 crore rupees and cash and bank balance of 1,000 crore rupees should go ahead and issue and announce a buyback as well. For bonus shares, the surplus and reserves, if it's equal to or more than 10 times of the paid up share capital, and they can do a share split if the market price or book value exceeds 50 times of its value currently that they are stating as well. There's 7 of them. All of them are up and buzzing in trade on the back of an expectation that maybe, yes, now the shareholders will be rewarded at a higher level. And now I just took a look at all the financials of the companies as well as to whether they do qualify for this or not. And there was an interesting take that GNFC is the one which can actually do all the things that the Gujarat government stated in its policy document. They have a cash of around 1181 crore rupees. They have profits of 1704 crore rupees, and they have a net worth of around 7991 crore rupees. So they will be able to meet all the criteria that is set by the government without taking any stress on their balance sheet as well.
Sonal, many thanks for joining us. Here's the latest in the Reliance Capital resolution saga. The second round of auction is concluded, and sources say the Hinduja Group is the only bidder that participated. All other parties, including Torrent, Oaktree and Piramal Consortium, have not participated in the bidding process. Lenders had set a base bid at 9,500 crore rupees with 8,000 crore rupees upfront cash. We learned that Hinduja Group's bid offered 9,650 crore rupees upfront and is likely to be announced as the highest bidder. Official data from the government suggests that the rural employment under the NREGA scheme has seen a sharp drop in the last fiscal when compared to the previous years. The number of rural households availing the scheme in FY23 stood at a little over 6 crore versus 7 crore households in FY22. Government officials believe that this downward trend is in fact a sign of steady economic revival. Sapna joins us now with the key numbers. Sapna, this does suggest that things are looking better as far as the rural economy is concerned, and this is certainly good news for the government.
Well, the latest Manrega data clearly indicates that progressively the employment levels under the scheme has been coming off from the highs, especially as compared to the pandemic years of FY21 and FY22. And government is pretty all right with this trend. Government is indicating that this probably indicates that the level of distress in the rural economy has come down. So it's a good sign actually. So very quickly, if you look at the number of households which have been employed, FY23 the numbers are much lower than what they were in FY22 and FY21. Similarly, the number of individuals who availed employment under Manrega, that is also off from its highs. I think less than 9 crore individuals opted for Manrega in the financial year gone by as compared to 11 crore plus in the peak pandemic year of FY21, and also FY22 more than 10 crore people had availed employment under Manrega. Similarly, in terms of the number of households opting for the entire 100 days of employment, that has also come off. Government officials say that it's the households which are in abject poverty which avail this entire 100-day period in terms of their jobs. So that number is also off its highs, 39% lower in FY23 and 50% lower as compared to FY21. So all in all, government is pretty all right with this kind of data. It's saying that probably the level of distress in the rural economy is much lower now than what it was 2 to 3 years ago.
Sapna, many thanks for joining us. Here's another exclusive this evening. The Competition Commission of India is set to finalise a new chairperson soon. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 the chairperson's appointment committee has conducted interviews of 30 candidates. The report has been sent to the Corporate Affairs Ministry for further approval. Parikshit standing by with the details. Parikshit, who are the likely front-runners?
Well, yes, we're learning from our sources that the Competition Commission of India could have a new chairperson very soon. More than 30 candidates have been considered for the post of chairperson. The CCI Chairperson Appointment Committee, led by Justice Sanjeev Khanna, has interviewed candidates. The Chairperson Appointment Committee has concluded these interviews and its report has been sent to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The Prime Minister's office is actively considering the names, the panel of names that has been recommended, and a decision could be taken very soon. The new chairperson will be appointed by the Appointments Committee of Cabinet. According to reports, former Defence Secretary Ajay Kumar, IFSA head Injeti Srinivas, former Gujarat Chief Secretary Pankaj Kumar are among the senior bureaucrats who have been considered for the role. CNBC-TV18 has learned from sources that former Gujarat Chief Secretary Pankaj Kumar could be among the front-runners. Ajay Kumar and Injeti Srinivas have told us that they have not applied for the CCI chairperson's position. Former Gujarat Chief Secretary and recently retired bureaucrat Pankaj Kumar did not respond to our queries. The new CCI chairperson is likely to have a tenure of up to 4 years, and even the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, when approached for a comment by CNBC-TV18, did not reply on what the status is as far as the appointment goes. But we learned from our sources that the new chairperson could be appointed within the next few weeks.
All right. Many thanks for joining us, Parikshit. We will, of course, be tracking that very closely. Time for us to head into a break. But up next, the government opens its arguments on the fifth day of the same-sex marriage hearings, requests the Supreme Court to leave the matter to Parliament. That and more when we return. The World Health Organization has issued an alert against cough syrups manufactured by Punjab-based company QP Pharma. This comes after Australian drug regulators found unacceptable levels of DEG and ethylene glycol in samples procured from Marshall Islands and Micronesia. The company's MD Sudhir Pathak has told CNBC-TV18 that the samples tested belong to expired batches. He claims the samples of syrups that were checked in Australia were meant for Cambodia. The QP Pharma incident becomes the third instance where an Indian firm has been in the dock with the World Health Organization in the last 7 months. Ekta standing by with more details. Ekta, the third incident where the WHO has red-flagged a product made in India. Take us through what the WHO has found to be the problem and what the company says.
Thanks for that. Well, yes, in the third instance in less than a year, the World Health Organization has put out another medical product alert on a cough syrup manufactured by an Indian company. The WHO, in its latest press release, has issued an alert on a cough syrup, guafenicin syrup, TG, indicating it is substandard or contaminated with unacceptable levels of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol. The syrup is manufactured by Punjab-based QP Pharma and marketed by Haryana-based Trillium Pharma. The cough syrup was identified in Marshall Islands and Micronesia and analyzed by the Australian drug regulators, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, or TGA, of Australia. As of now, the WHO has not reported any adverse events with the cough syrup manufactured by QP Pharma. To recap, Made in Pharma's cough syrup was linked to the death of over 65 children in Gambia, though the Indian government has refuted the allegations, and Marion Biotech's cough syrups was linked to the death of 18 children in Uzbekistan. This instance, however, revisits the concerns around the supply chain. After Made in Pharma and Marion Biotech, this is the third instance in the past 6 to 7 months that an Indian company has allegedly used ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol in manufacturing of cough syrups. Remember, ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol are colorless, odorless, sweetish tasting substances which are mostly used for industrial purposes. The two substances can be toxic if there is any contamination to the pharma grade and if it is consumed beyond recommended levels. The lack of compliance, lax manufacturing practices by smaller companies, and the need to cut costs by substituting inputs with lower costing raw materials are some of the reasons DEG has been used by Indian companies. Experts say there is no doubt these instances will dent India's reputation as the pharmacy of the world. However, the government is taking note. In its latest crackdown, the government had cancelled licenses of 18 pharma companies allegedly manufacturing spurious drugs, and as many as 76 pharma companies were inspected across the country by state and central drug regulators.
Ekta, many thanks for joining us. Now, 48 drugs have failed quality tests conducted by the country's drug regulator in March. Nearly 1,500 samples were tested by the CDSCO, bringing the failure rate to over 3%. The list includes commonly used medicines like calcium, vitamins, anti-diabetic drugs and antibiotics as well. Veteran banker KV Kamath says he's proud of the Indian banking system, adding he's sure that a First Republic Bank-like crisis will not happen in India. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, Kamath added that the US banking crisis indicates the flaws in the risk management practices of both regulators and banks. Take a look.
But, you know, on what is happening with global banks at this point in time, a jaw-dropping number, a $100 billion deposit plunge for First Republic Bank. You know, what do you make of this?
It indicates that, again, vast holes in the risk management practices by both regulators there and the banks themselves. You know, when this happened, I went into the balance sheet of that particular bank, and what struck me was I read it 3 times. I went into the P&L. The P&L has got a profit, nice profit, and the NPAs are in basis points, not even percentage points. You come to the balance sheet, item number 2 is, you know, held to maturity instruments. Within brackets, the valuation is given. The value is shown as almost 100, and within brackets, current value shown as 84. So I said, am I reading right? And previous year it was 97 or something like that. So where has this, what has happened? Then it struck me that this is where the hole is, and it's not accounted for. It is just a line item. So if this is how you are looking at risk, and obviously, I'm sure there are lessons which have been learned. I do not know the, you know, how other regulators in other domains look at it, but this is not so in India. So I can be proud of what is in India. This sort of a thing can never happen in India.
Well, that is KV Kamath. Now, the Supreme Court continued hearing the same-sex marriage petitions for the 5th day. The government opened its argument requesting that the issue first go through Parliament. It said that the apex court is not equipped to contemplate all conceivable scenarios. Ashmit joins us now with the details. Ashmit, take us through the government's arguments in court today.
Well, the petitioners concluded their arguments today, and in fact, one counsel, Arundhati Kadju, ended by saying that we seek the blessing. Same-sex couples are seeking the blessings of the centre, just as the same as they would grant their blessings to heterosexual couples. However, from the initial position that the centre appears to have taken before the apex court, no such blessings are coming their way. The Solicitor General began his arguments today. There appears to be a tactical shift as far as the centre's arguments are concerned. They are no longer going into whether it's an urban elitist phenomena or whether it is something that is alien to the Indian culture. Now they are approaching this strictly on a legal footing. The Solicitor General argued that this is an issue which historically needs to be addressed by the legislature, that there could be the finest of judges deciding on the matter, but it still may not reflect the will of the people. That this is an issue which again spans various genders, various sexualities, social as well as legal rights, and therefore it is only for the Parliament that is competent to in fact gauge all these possible scenarios, draft a law, secure expert advice, and then come out with a piece of legislation that addresses the issue. The courts, is what the Solicitor General said, is simply, number one, not competent and ill-advised in dealing with this matter. Not just that, the Solicitor General looked at the historical background to the Special Marriages Act, said that it is not that the Indian Parliament in the 50s was unaware of the concept of the LGBTQ community, but rather consciously took a decision to avoid naming them and providing for them in the SMA or the Special Marriage Act, and that is something that cannot be undone by the apex court. So this was the broad summary of the submissions being made by the Solicitor General. But today was just day one of the government submissions. Tomorrow is when the hearing will resume before the apex court, and the Solicitor General is expected to continue making his position before the top court.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. And before we wrap, a stalwart of Indian politics is no more. 5-time Punjab Chief Minister, 11-time MLA and the patriarch of the Shiromani Akali Dal, Parkash Singh Badal, died on Tuesday. He was 95. Political leaders from across parties, including Prime Minister Modi, paying their tributes. The union government has declared 2 days of mourning. The Punjab state government has declared a holiday on Thursday in his order. Parkash Singh Badal's political career spans 7 decades. He was the youngest MLA at the age of 25 in Punjab and the oldest politician to fight an election at the age of 94. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news continues on the other side.